Tell you something, right? To me, tired is like a feeling, and feelings come and go. Yeah, I feel tired. Okay, so there's a guy that's sitting on the couch right now eating Cheetos. Does he feel tired?
Probably does.
Yeah. Well, then choose your heart. And the beautiful thing about the dojo is it doesn't discriminate. Didn't matter who I was or whatever. Once you put that uniform on, we were all exactly the same.
Well, we don't want another suits discussion for half an hour.
Suits is one that I like.
I was actually going to say.
How do you keep yourself continuously learning?
There's two things that I live by, right? One, I never make you do anything that I haven't done before. The other thing that I do, I value mentorship, and I believe in life, even coaches need to be coached.
Yeah. If you're a snack, what would you be?
A caramello koala.
Caramello koala.
I'm the owner of the gym, yeah, but I'm not running marathon. I'm not fighting in boxing. I'm not competing in martial arts. I just train because that helps me, the flow and effect, make the right decisions outside in my life. You know, people ask me this question all the time. Why paint and why the gym? Like, it seems from the outside, right, literally two different worlds. But to me, it's always been, I'm connected to transformation. Thanks for having me on our show.
Welcome, Ben. Welcome to the Connect podcast.
Let's connect.
Today is going to be an interesting episode on the Connect podcast. And at the start, when we came together and put the Connect podcast together, we said, one day we were going to interview each one of us as the hosts to be the guests. And today is the first episode of that trial. So this one's going to be a really good one. We have Ben on, and Ben's been a dear friend of mine, a dear friend of Ron's. We've both known him for a long, long, long time. And over the years, we've both seen different sides of Ben, and there's a lot of different elements that build the human that he is today. And coming from me personally, I have a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for Ben, given the person he is, because of the determination he brings to his position, because of his consistency, because of how he can lead a crowd, how he can drive a force, and how he can grow business. So I'm really excited about this one. I know Ron is, and I know Ben is excited to get into his life. Now, before we get started, we want to pre-frame this in a way that people understand this is going to be a deep episode. We want to dive into Ben's history, Ben's story, Ben's journey, and what his life looks like. Now, before we get into it, is there anything that you'd like to keep off the table, Ben?
No, I think, I want to be honest and upfront, with all the questions. So, no, you can ask anything and I'll be straight shooter with it.
Promise?
I promise.
Okay. You didn't say that before the show, so.
Thanks for having me on our show, boys.
Welcome, Ben. Welcome to the Connect podcast. All right.
We haven't done this one in a while, just the three of us.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like... Yeah, I'm in the middle.
Open.
I'm in the hot seat.
So much space for activities.
I'm in the hot seat. No, but look, I'm an open book, and I do want to answer these honestly and openly, so you can ask me anything you like.
Alrighty. Well, tell us about you. Where did it all start? Bring us back to the childhood. Who was Ben Ilacqua as a little kid? What did life look like back then? Where did all this start from?
I think personally, as a kid, I had an older sister, so it was my mother, my father, and my older sister. And, very early on, she became my direct competition. My sister, to pre-frame, was a very dominant individual. I used to joke and say that I thought my sister was going to be the first prime minister, a female prime minister of Australia. She was the captain of the debating team. She won both, state and national public speaking competitions. So, to find a voice in my house was a challenge for me. And, she was a great dancer, a fantastic martial artist. So, very early on, she became, my competition, and so we went to bat often. We had a 5-year gap in age between us, so didn't share a lot in common. So, that's where that sort of competitive streak, I think, started very early in my household. And in my home, I had a really, really blessed upbringing. I had a mother and father who loved each other, and my first recollections of my household were family holidays and memories and really good times. So me as a kid always wanted to be always wanted to strive to grow. I guess that was really the spark as a young boy. There wasn't a challenge that was presented in front that I didn't want to get better at if I wasn't great at it, or really take it on.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because like now that you just said that, you find that your first competition is your siblings.
Yeah.
Like that's how life is, because you're in competition, whether it's favoritism or sports or just trying to be them. It's like that.
Yeah. You're looking up. You're looking up to them, obviously, in some respects. And my sister was a very powerful character. Still is a very powerful character. So for me to find who I was in my household was a challenge. A real challenge. So there were often times when I tried to break out and become who I was. My sister got accepted in primary school to a highly talented, gifted school where she had to actually do a test for and make it. I sat that same test and failed. So I was always on the back foot behind my sister, trying to break out and be who I was, So
how did that shape the next steps?
Yeah, so I guess in family life then, things took a little bit of a shift, from the early days of, I remember us having a really, happy dynamic at home, and financially my dad was doing quite well. He ran a furniture business in Fairfield, when Fairfield back then was like Little Italy. So a lot of his customers were our family, and him and my uncles all sold furniture in that district, and they did really well. And I can remember my father, was a great salesman. He was very charismatic. He just had a real way of connecting with people, So I saw that at a young age, and we holidayed together. I saw the highs and the highs of having financial freedom, and then just before I sort of turned 10 years old, there was a big shift in the household, and I can remember the arguments and, sometimes just the murmur between the walls of my parents, having these disagreements about, money and, situations changed. So, long story of that short, my parents actually split up quite messily, and, then as a young boy, you have to grow up really quickly. You got to make some decisions to try and be the man of the house, when really I probably wasn't ready to do that at that point.
That's when the rebellious Ben comes out.
Yeah, so with no father in the house, who was quite strict at the time, my father, typical Italian father, with him not around and my mother trying to make ends meet, means that, you go on a journey, right, with no one to guide or sort of support. So the challenge was watching my mum back then. I remember she was scared to go outside to the letterbox and, get the mail, because she knew in the mail that there was going to be these bills, And when you watch your mother, at 10 years old, open the water bill, and I could see in her face at that point that she didn't know how we were going to pay it. Like that's a thing that stayed with me most of my life, man, I'll be honest. So, we went from this financial high to this like down crash low, and I stopped talking to my father for many years because I had that resentment towards him. I blamed him for everything, basically. So,
and you kind of feel like they just left all the hard stuff.
Yeah.
For you to deal with.
Agree.
For your mum, your sister.
Yeah. So my sister stepped in, tried to take on the financial burden. We had to sell our family home that my dad and my nunu had built with their hands, literally. We lost our home. We moved to a smaller duplex to restart this new life. And my mum, she was a trooper, man. She worked 2 jobs, to really put, what we could on the table, right, at that point. And so money back then actually became like this real devil in the household, like to talk about money, to ask for money.
Yeah.
I remember my mum saying things like, money didn't grow on trees, Ben, like we just don't have the finances. I couldn't buy the boots that other guys were buying at that point. I couldn't play certain things. I couldn't do certain. Mum didn't have the money to do so.
Yeah.
So, growing up in the streets, Ron, and because we went to the same school together, you just got to try and make ends meet, man. You got to get out there and do some silly things and you know, things that I regret doing. But I guess that's where it shapes you, you know. So fast forward all of that, you know, my family, although, look, this is my story too. Let me pre-frame that, you know, I'm not saying that I had a harder time than anybody else. You know, I know that people have been through some serious stuff and, you know, it's just what happened to me at that time.
It's your story, and your story isn't better or worse than anyone else, but it's something that you had to deal with that shaped your life.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, obviously coming into the podcast, you know, you take a time to reflect and go, well, you know, what have I been through? But, you know, a lot of this stuff is past me, you know, and one thing I always teach my guys is that we actually don't look in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
You know, we're constantly trying to always look forward, and a lot of this stuff helps shape you, yes, but I don't sit in the past much, you know. So this is my story and what I went through.
Where did martial arts step in?
So I started martial arts in 1992. I was 4 years old at that point, and I think both my parents just decided that, you know, like most parents do when they bring kids to martial arts, that we were living in a rough area, and they wanted the fact that the children knew how to defend themselves. So my mum encouraged us to go and start martial arts, and back then it was a really good time in martial arts. You know, there were, you know, the Power Rangers, you know, the Three Ninjas, Ninja Turtles, Bloodsport, like these type of movies and characters, and Karate Kid. It was
bringing back memories
around that time, you know. So I was watching these things regularly. So I was going to training and coming home and watching these movies, and you know, so this is well before YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So this is what I lived in this fantasy land of being this karate kid. You know, I trained 6 days a week. We had private lessons. Mum really tried to invest time into us going to martial arts. So my sister and I both did martial arts on a regular basis. So martial arts was always a big part of us. You know, we trained in a dojo back then that was run very military style. You know, you only spoke when you were spoken to. You bowed at every other angle. You respected the hierarchy. As color belts didn't talk to the black belts and vice versa. It was very, very old school martial arts, you know, and that's the way it was run back then. And, you know, I trained under a grandmaster who, I'm not going to name names today. That's not what I'm about. But, you know, obviously I learned a lot from being under this hierarchy, but a lot of the stuff that happened with them, you know, you take to the grave. But I was fiercely loyal as a kid. Whatever they asked to do, we did, you know, and it was just a different time in martial arts, you know, very different time. So I had worked my way up to the black belt ranks, which is the ultimate rank to get to, you know, before you sort of start on another journey at advanced level, I guess. So that took me about 6.5 years. And when I got to 10 years old, I was actually registered the youngest black belt in Australia. So I was actually in magazines. At that point, we had magazines. I was in all the martial arts magazines. I was the youngest black belt in Australia. I was 10 years old. Now, at that point, to put
that's a massive achievement.
Yeah, it was unheard of.
Yeah.
Only Benny the Jet overseas actually had his black belt at that age. So it was very, very unheard of at that time. Even forbidden. Some questioned, you know, how can this kid? Yeah, but in my black belt examination, I did exactly what the adults did. I did the same amount of rounds against fresh adult black belts. I had to break roof tiles with my hand. I nearly broke my hand as a kid. I actually didn't get through them. They were too hard. I had to break the same amount of boards, you know, as a child, right, at 10 years old. So I passed my black belt, and then as you move your way up to the hierarchy, remember this is military style training, you know, everyone's strict and whatever. You start to see other things, and my father and my mother started to notice some things that were happening within the dojo, and they questioned a lot of it, and they actually pulled me out. So they pulled me out, and for whatever reason, still probably don't know the truth behind that, but they pulled us out, and I actually stopped training, doing what I loved at that point. Again, moving on, you know, martial arts. So then I was talking about my family life, and everything had been broken around the same time that I'd lost the thing that I love the most.
And also that discipline.
So I'm missing the discipline. I'm missing my grandmasters, my teachers, you know, all the hierarchy there of that discipline. I'm missing the dojo, and I've just lost my father. So the time for me was quite, horrific. And, I felt lost, very lost as a child. So we, both my sister and I moved away from martial arts and my parents swore that we never would go back, and so then as I moved through, my teenage years, around that time, that's when things got a little bit challenging. All my friends circle, we're not bad people, probably just making some bad choices at that point, where that's all they knew too.
Yeah.
A lot of them come from broken homes. I remember every Father's Day, we'd hang out with the 10 boys that had no fathers. So it was just a way of life. It was just a way of life at that point. We didn't actually know any different. And then
just following the group at that stage.
Yeah.
You think, like, I think back to that time and I think there's so many times where I could have been arrested.
Yeah, I agree.
Should have been dead. Got into ridiculous punch-ons that ended up with knives being pulled out. I remember there was one on the side of school with you where there were some Asian guys that had the machetes in the backpack.
Yes.
And they pulled it out, and it was you and Christian. And Christian, man, he came and defended Ben, and he was ready to get stabbed. Like that, I knew you were boys for life then.
Yeah, I'm
then.
still friends with him today.
Yeah.
But I think the thing to pre-frame for people that listen into that, like, again, a lot of this doesn't define who I am now today.
But that's what we were living
Well,
with.
that's what we were going through.
Like when we say it was a bad area, like there was some bad stuff happening, and you were just there.
Yeah, it was very real and raw, and you had to really be a bit streetwise, know. And again, I test that to now why I actually am the way I am. A lot of those moments helped me grow from those experiences too, So, I was going through a troubled sort of teenage years. My mum actually sort of politely asked me to leave the house. At that point, I went to live with my nunna in Marylands, and things got worse there because from Fairfield to Marylands, you can imagine Marylands was actually 10 times heavier than Fairfield at the time. It was really tough areas, So every weekend was the same scenario. I just was spiraling badly out of control. I lost my license. I was trying to hold on to a job as a painter. It was really, really toxic time. And then talking martial arts, I guess one day I had to make a decision. I remember I lost my license. An incident happened at Penrith Panthers one night, where things blew up, and I was defending a friend that night, and I lost control of myself and my emotions and things that I teach the kids not to do now. And I lost control of myself, and I ended up, spending the night overnight. And that led me to charges and a few other things that we had to fight back then as a kid. I had to get, defense in to give me a hand. It cost me money, it cost me time, So at that point, I made a decision. I need to step away from everything around me because I was watching what was happening, and friends were going to, this particular fight club that they were a part of, and these guys were going down like bikies and all the avenues that you could take, and they all made it sound glossy from the outside, but I had to step back and reflect and go, you know what, I believe there's more for me at this point. I believe that I deserve to have better, but I'm going to have to shift my attitude at this point.
What age was this?
So I'm probably about 16, 17.
Okay.
Right? So I decided to go back to the dojo, the one place that my parents told me not to go back to because of whatever reason. So I looked past everything that they had seen, and I walked into the dojo one night. And the beautiful thing about the dojo is it doesn't discriminate, right? It didn't matter what I was feeling at the time. Didn't matter who I was or whatever. Once you put that uniform on, we were all exactly the same. And you had policemen, you had, ex-criminals, you had, professionals, lawyers, all in the same space. But with the uniform on, we're all like one.
The same.
So that attracted me to come back in and feel welcome again. And they did. They took me back in. Sure enough, over time, the cracks that my parents saw, I started to see too. My grandmaster, he also was an alcoholic, and he'd drink heavily. And because I was part of his main circle, lots of things happened within the next 3 years that sort of led me to where I am now, teaching at a school. So I used to every night go to sleep, and I'd go through this weird dream about, having my own place, my own dojo, where I wouldn't treat people the way that I felt I was being treated to some degree in this particular dojo. So I didn't want to run a military style. I did want to be strict. I wanted to keep some traditional elements of what we taught, but also make sure the kids feel free and they can be themselves and not be robotic and have their own characteristics. Remember, I'm a young, firecracker at this point, so what they always try to do was chop me down, make sure that I walk like a robot and things like that. So I wanted to just expand my wings. So I would dream at night to have this place where these kids could come and train and everybody was in there, all different walks of life, So that dream would often keep me up at night. And so yeah, when the massive fallout happened with the dojo and there was some things that I didn't align in the way he was speaking to people and talking to females, I walked away from the club. And again, walking away the second time, but this time as an adult, that was a really another difficult time because you're leaving something that I was so connected to, man. I'm a mission person. You tell me the mission, say, Benny, we're going in the trenches, we're going back to back, here's the enemy, we've only got this much arsenal, and I'm going to jump in and go there. I'm connected to always the mission. So, I was always connected to the dojo like that. I was, unbelievably loyal to them. And, things that were there and said and done, it just didn't sit well with me. So,
And did you have resentment to your parents when they made the decision to leave? And then did you understand them more?
big time.
So there was a realization of what they were seeing?
Yeah, definitely. So,
And was there a bit of guilt?
yeah, a lot. Actually, I had...
Because of the guilt of what led for the last few years of your behavior?
Yeah, remember, I haven't spoken to my father
Yeah.
very much for this time as well. So my teenage years, we didn't really connect much. So
Because that would be
Yeah.
like a blow to the system to go, shit,
I
all
understood.
the things I've done.
Yeah, I
Makes
understood.
sense.
Yeah.
I understood why they made that decision on behalf of me at the time. And remember, I would have kicked and screamed when I was
Yeah.
a kid when they pulled me out.
Yeah.
I was unbelievably loyal to the dojo. It was my home. So, fast forward for martial arts, obviously, opportunity now. We've up on the wall in the gym is follow your dreams. They know the way. And it sort of reflects back to that dream that I had as a kid every night, keep me up at night. Why that went up on the wall, the first thing that once we completed the painting, that was the first thing to go up because I followed something and now kids can come and adults can come and all walks of life can walk in there without with the same feeling of feeling welcome. So that was the ultimate
Doing
goal.
it your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said I learned a lot of lessons, but I learned a lot of what not to do.
Yeah.
That's why we've had some success in this space and lots of kids train with us at the moment.
Well, you've got to... Oh, sorry.
Was this Grandmaster a person that you respected, you had a lot of respect for at the time?
I still do, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I still reference a lot of the teachings and learnings, one of the best martial artists in Australia.
Yeah.
Easily. One of the best teachers in Australia. Just had some demons that he was going through. But back then, the Grandmaster's like the pinnacle of the school. Nothing he said or do would ever be questioned. You know what I mean? So it's hard for people to understand that because nowadays you couldn't get away with doing those things or acting like that or speaking to women like that or talking down to people like that. People don't accept it. But for some reason, in a time when martial arts was so powerful, it was the way. And we were taught to follow the way all the time. So interesting time, interesting time to how we run the dojo today.
Or even seeing it in your programs, like you cater for all groups where you've got the mums or the females, you've got the children,
Yeah.
you've got older people that are training for the first time. It's also like safe spaces for them.
Well, to be honest, that's how Shadowbox itself, we've rebranded since then, but Shadowbox was born from that.
Yeah.
We wanted to come up with a concept that everybody could come to and just have a lot of fun doing it when they're training and just enjoy themselves. I remember I come from an old school dojo. There was no technology allowed in the dojo. No phones, no music, no nothing, which I agree with the no phones and I still implement that today. That's what I say there is a level of respect. We don't have any phones in the dojo upstairs, but no technology, no music, lights are on. Like I would go home at night and I would train with the lights off, boxing bag, pumping the music, just that's the way I like to train. So when we created Shadowbox and I spent some time sitting down, I put the pen to paper. It was like, what do I like to do? I just wanted music on, nightclub vibe, because that's who we were as a kid. Like that's who I connected with. And it was, DJ sets playing and here's me doing
Sunset Brothers.
Yeah, well, that's what we play to this day.
Yeah.
We actually do.
I actually wanted to put on your intro.
Yeah, so that's how Shadowbox was born. Boxing inspired fitness, just boxing, not martial arts, no hierarchy, no uniform. Come, sweat it out, have a good time while you're doing it. And that's how the birth of Shadowbox originally started.
Can we go back a bit?
Yeah.
Because this is cool. I want to hear about Shadow Fitness and that story as well. But after school, what was the next chapter?
Yeah, so I was a painter by trade. All right, and it's a bit ironic because being a painter, we always used to laugh because remember I referenced the Karate Kid. The Karate Kid, what was he taught from Mr. Miyagi was actually paint the fence.
That's funny.
So it's funny how these things happen. I used to joke that I was scarred slightly from my father because he didn't want to know my gender when I was born. He wanted it as a surprise. So he decided to paint my room banana yellow. So I had a banana yellow room till I was the age of 13, right? And you can imagine when I started to bring girls home, respectfully, I had a banana yellow room, right? So we used to joke that I became a painter just because I wanted to paint the banana yellow room. Others would say because it was ironic because the Karate Kid painted the fence and that was his one thing. So I became a painter, and purely because I'd lost a couple jobs. Growing up, I actually said all the time, and I'd write down on that paper, when you get it at school and it says, what do you want to be when you grow up? I write real estate agent. And not knowing really what a real estate agent did or was or whatever, for some reason, if you look back on all those folders that my mum kept, you'd look back and every single year I wrote real estate agent, real estate agent. So for some reason, I thought as a kid I wanted to be a real estate agent. I think because, it was the largest asset that people would have. And I thought I wanted to be in part of that transaction. I wanted to be, I wanted to sell someone their dream home. How cool would that be that I could influence them into that space?
But also out in our area, the people that you see around the area in suits, in the flashy cars are real estate agents.
Well, it gave me the cars, the lifestyle, everything that I thought that I wanted at that point,
Besides that, it was the drug dealers.
Yeah.
But, it was that. It was real estate agent or drug dealer.
And the thought of purchasing a home was so far away from me. Having enough money, watching my mum struggle, I'm like, I want to set myself up in a position that I understand how to do property and things like that. So I actually did my diploma in real estate. I got my real estate license and I've started the job and I've got this car and, I'm turning up. I got my first gig and I remember they told me you got to put up signs at the front and door knock and deliver, pamphlets. That was my job. So I was putting up these signs, banging these bloody timber things into the ground.
I think you showed us your first business card.
Yeah, I got a business card. I think I was over the moon that day. I remember that. I was like, I've made it.
Mama, we made it.
Yeah, this was the pinnacle of my life. I'm doing my dream job here. I've got my first photo on a card that I could give to people.
With the gel with the curls.
Yeah. I put that much gel in my hair.
Do you remember getting that first business card? I thought, when I had that first business, I wanted to give it to everyone.
I know, and I did. I literally did, Ron. I knocked on every door, man. We were in Liverpool at the time, I remember. I must have had the door slammed in my face about 400 times. People telling me to get lost in a worse way. And anyway, I had to become creative there, actually, to how to speak to people and communicate, how to take no as an answer, how to then rebuttal no. And they taught me some really cool tactics around communication, and I started actually picking up a few listings. So I picked up a listing, the salesman, he actually sold it, I got no commission. And I was really cranky. Remember, I'm this firecracker 16-year-old. I'm like, dude, this ain't happening. So I walked into the boss's thing. I'm like, the listing that I gave him was Mrs. Smith. He just sold and he made commission. So what do I get?
Yeah.
And the guy looked at me, he's like, you serious? He goes, you're 16 years old. I said, well, let me sell houses then. He said, you're not going to sell houses till you're 21. All right? He goes, go back out, start door knocking, keep doing what you're doing. I had the shits.
Yeah.
I'm like, no way he's going to tell me to do that. Now that I think about it, I'm like, man, I should have, stuck my time out. Yeah. But back then I remember thinking, dude.
But even like $50, you would think $50 for a lead or something.
Yeah.
You just want something to know. That,
recognition. I wanted recognition.
If I'm getting 100 doors closed on me and I'm opening one, I want to be paid for that one. Just something to show that getting another 100 doors closed on me is going to be worth it to get that one.
Yeah. So I tried to negotiate my terms, and it didn't go very well then. And then I ended up getting really cranky about it, and I took it out in a way that I was trying to take it out on the company. So instead of going and door knocking, I'd actually go and hang out at a mate's house and things like that till I got caught. And the day I got sacked from that job was a big eye opener for me, because I knew that I had no one to blame but myself at that point. Like, I'd made a deep mistake. I had to go home and tell my mum I lost my job, and I was absolutely gut wrenched, and I made a promise that that wasn't gonna happen again. So I needed to pick up my game, and my mum said, okay, that was like a Thursday afternoon. By Monday, I had to have a job, because that was one thing that my mum always said: if you leave school, you're going straight into a job. So I left on the Friday. I started on the Monday in real estate. I was there for some time. I lost that job. I started again because she forced me to, and I'm grateful for that. So I actually went and got an apprenticeship in painting, because I figured the apprenticeship would go for 4 years. So I thought, I'm safe here for 4 years. This guy can't sack me.
Yeah.
That was actually the approach at first, not knowing that I actually fell in love with painting as a trade. Right? I really do. And I'm still involved in painting till today. But so yeah, I was a painter by trade. I did my apprenticeship and worked my way up to basically the leading foreman and running this particular guy's company as the head painter, along with his son. We basically ran the company. So it was a great experience. I had to learn quickly and I learned a little bit about business and estimating and quoting and all the things you do in the trade. So that was my painting career, until I decided that one day I was going to leave my boss and I was going to try and go out on my own. And like every aspiring, contractor or tradesman, I just wanted to do small jobs on my own by myself, and sort of dictate my own terms. So that's what happened. I started my own gig, and before time, happened, I picked up another worker and I needed help on this job. I had a contractor and I started to sort of manage the business. We started in June, and I think by December, I had 9 guys working for me by the end of that year. So we were scaling quicker than I could even cope. I had to find multiple jobs. There was plans to buy another van. The thing that got me was that I actually burnt myself out, and I learned a lot about burnout at this point. So I got a contract with Westpac Bank, and Westpac wanted all the works done at night. So I had a night team and a day team, and I floated between both, right? So I was sleeping in my van. I barely came home. I was, doing ridiculous hours, day and night, literally trying to manage these 2 squads, and other painters would come in. I'd manage them, and they'd go, and then I'd go in the morning, 7 o'clock, work all day to 3. I'd have a sleep in the car, then I'd start again at 5, and I kept doing that round the clock for hours and hours and hours. And eventually, I fell out of love. I'll be honest. I fell out of love for the thing that I actually really liked, which was painting. And I remember going to my accountant at that point. I said to him, I want to get out of painting. And he said to me, man, you're nuts. You keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be able to pay off everything. You're going to pay off your investment properties and do this and do that. But I wasn't so connected to it anymore. I was waking up like it was a bit of a chore, and I didn't. Watching my father make those mistakes in business, where I saw him at one point waking up, freaking out, it always was in the back of my mind that if I'm not aligned to the mission anymore, that I need to make a change. And I think at that point I felt that same feeling that he went through, that he wasn't on the same mission anymore. The mission was actually falling over, and I felt like it was falling over for me. So I had to make a big decision, and that's when Inspirations, I guess, was born.
Did that opportunity come your way, or did you go out and look for Inspirations?
I actually, so Megan had a hair salon. She was working out of a hair salon in Narellan. And back then, Narellan, Camden was all farmland. And she would travel up Camden Valley Way from where we lived. And she would often come home and say, babe, this place is going to blow up. She goes, I'm cutting.
Still living in area?
We're in Cecil Hills at this point. But still, Liverpool way. We're 20, 25 minutes down Camden Valley Way at this point.
She was the first one exposed.
Yeah,
to
she
Lorella.
come out. So she was coming home and saying, I'm cutting the developers' hair, wives' hair, and they're telling me all about this projection for Oran Park, Western Sydney, Southwest Sydney blowing up, the airport, all these things. And, so I started demographically just looking at where's the closest paint shop. And there wasn't one in projection in this area. So that's when I first approached Dulux. So, and remember, I'm still at this point probably 20, 21 years old. I had my own painting business, which was doing really well, but they don't know who I am. They don't care. They don't really care. And I rang them up. I remember when I got through to someone in Dulux, and the guy basically laughed at me on the phone and said, I said, I want to open up a paint shop. He said, you and every other painter, mate, what makes you think we're going to give it to you? I said, no, I'm serious. I've got this projection for this area. He goes, look, let me do some homework on the area. I'll come back to you. So anyway, he looked up Oran Park, and this thing looks like farmland. So he comes, I rang him up again. He didn't call me. I rang him, and I'm like, dude, I want to do this. And he's like, mate, I told you. He goes, and not only that, I looked into the area, and the area doesn't have anything around it. You're going to go under. And there was a paint shop there previously that has gone under. So the stats are against you.
What was that, a Dulux one?
Yeah. So there was already one that came in.
Before the boom.
It had fallen over.
Yeah.
So he said, your back's against the wall. You got to give up. Anyway, a couple of months went by. I'm slugging away in painting at this point. I'm just like dragging the chain. I'm really not interested anymore. It was a really hard moment. And then I kept pushing. And then the guy at Dulux actually said, mate, you're actually talking to the wrong person. He said, you can't buy a Dulux. You need to go and speak to the franchise, which is Inspirations Paint. And I didn't understand franchises or anything at this point. I'm like, what are you talking about? I want to buy Dulux. He said, you don't buy Dulux. you buy Inspirations.
Yeah.
And Dulux are very smart like that. They care a lot about their reputation and their brand. So they don't give you a Dulux store. They give you another name called Inspirations Paint. You can only sell Dulux product. But they, just in case something happens to your brand, protects theirs. Very, very, very. I mean, Dulux own everything, man. They own lots and lots of different businesses. So this guy led me on to Inspiration, said, call this guy, speak to him. So I'm going down a rabbit hole again. I'm calling up Inspirations, and the guy's laughing at me saying, mate, you've got a painting business, and part of the actual agreement, contractually, you can't have a painting business and own a paint store. I said, no, mate, I'm going to close this thing. He said, mate, that's what everybody tells us. I said, no, I'm going to close this thing. So it went back and forth. I remember him saying, mate, buddy, you're so persistent. I'm like, I'm deadly serious about this. Like, I really want to get out.
Yeah, it seems like for them saying no a lot.
Yeah.
There was something there that...
Yeah. Some 21-year-old kid's calling.
Yeah.
I probably had a squeaky voice. I still have a squeaky voice. You know what I mean? Like, you can imagine from his end what it's... I look back now.
But you must have known something because... most people at that stage would have been like, it doesn't look like it's happening.
Well, I made a portfolio, and I could tell you number for number how many houses, the infrastructure that was going to come in, what happened to Oran Park Raceway. I was ready to rock.
Just from Megan's little comment there, you really went deep into it.
Big time.
Not just going off the back of...
No. So I didn't just decide, hey, I'm going to start selling paint in an area that wasn't going to work. Like, I really put some effort into it. I had a folder with photos of the raceway, of what it looked like now, because they had projections. They had there was 250,000 homes, which meant so many people were going to move into the area in the next 3 years, then 6 years. Yeah. Like, this thing was going to blow up, which, have a look around you. Like, it's insane, this area, what's happened since then. So what I did do was I actually went and found the site, and I started to sort of scope out where I was going to be. So I was trying to edge them forward to making the deal. And then fast forward on that, I got in front of the right people and then come up with actually the deal, and I deregistered my painting ABN and re-registered under the banner of Inspirations Paint as a franchise owner. So youngest franchise owner in the operation at that point.
Yep.
And yeah, Dulux told me that basically I was going to eat shit for 18 months because it was just not ready for someone like us to be there. And I tell you, man, for the first 18 months and literally to the 18th month, that's how smart they are as a business. Yeah. We struggled big time, man. I remember one day we opened the doors and a guy walked in the first day. I think he was just strolling past and just felt sorry for us and came in and had a good chat. He bought nothing and left. So I've traded zero. Yeah. I mean, mind you, I've just left 6-7 figure.
But also
paintings.
in your head, you're building up to your first customer.
Yeah, but I've just left close to 7-figure painting business, right?
Yeah.
And my accountants told me, don't do this. My father was back in the picture.
Everyone's told you.
Yeah, because
even the franchise has told you not to do this.
Don't do this. I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs, waiting for a customer to walk in. So we sold nothing. The following day, we sold $18. We transacted $18, and I'm thinking, "Fuck! I've made the biggest mistake of my life, literally."
And that hard ass mentality comes in.
Fuck.
Like you're like,
Humbling as.
am I thinking I'm way better than what I thought?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh man, I thought I was going under quickly.
Yep.
Your back's up against a wall, and those moments are the ones that sort of build the skills inside of you to shoot forward.
yeah,
Agree. And like
sink or swim.
when you're entrepreneurial spirited, when the only thing I know, I woke up every morning and I went in. And I got up and I went in and I got up and I did the same thing in the painting business, and I took that across to distribution. Didn't matter what it was. I knew I had work ethic and I knew that I had people skills. I just needed to get in there and connect with people and keep building those connections, because that's what my father was very good at. I remember sitting in the car with my father, and he had a mobile phone that was this long and the antenna was this long, and he would talk on the phone on the way to school, and he was very charismatic. And he used to say to me, later on in life when I reconnected with my dad, I became really best mates with him towards the end there. I asked him about sales and things like that. And he said, I was never selling any furniture. I wasn't selling them a bed. I would sell them the experience. I would sell them the relationship that we had, that they trusted me, that I was actually giving them the best possible bed for the best possible price. So it was never about the sale itself. It was always about
The feeling.
the experience that he was giving him within that conversation. So that sat with me a lot in those times. I thought I got good work ethic, and I knew I was going to take my dad's charismatic approach to sales, at that point, because I was selling paint, to both tradesmen and retail mums and dads who want to do their DIY job. So that's where we landed. And discipline. You said something before, I asked about martial arts. I reflect now back, everything that I learned in martial arts has put me in a stepping stone to do what I do today. Because the packing of your bag with your uniform, making sure that you have your pants, your gi, your belt, stepping onto class, onto the mat, have to be on time, bow out at a certain time. The hardships you learn, like the humbling moments when you're learning a new sequence or move or pattern that you don't get straight away, and you got to turn up and keep persisting and consistency and keep failing almost. You just keep failing, but you keep falling forward, all the time. I learned that from martial arts.
Yeah.
I learned that from martial arts.
Is there any key people that you look back and say that they helped you at a pinnacle time that don't know what they've done for you? Have you do you think of anyone and go?
Lots know, because I'm very conscious, and you'll see obviously on my social media and stuff, I always reflect on the mentors that I have a lot. So I do want them to know before they go, because people don't have to give you time.
Yeah.
Everybody's time is valuable to them, right? And it's the only thing that people can give you for free.
Yeah.
Right? Some people give it to you with expectation, but when they don't, I'm very appreciative of that these days, because if you spent 10 minutes with me, helping me without anything in return, that's a special connection that we share. So I try and tell all my mentors now, and there's been so many over the years that have helped me and still helping me, but one that I didn't get to tell was actually my nunnu. So I remember when I moved out with my nunna to live with her, and I was there for 2 years, I watched a man, incredibly hard worker, the hardest worker I've ever seen in my life. Mind you, he's late, early 70s at this point. He died in his 90s, but I lived down in a granny flat, like in a bunker underneath the house, and there was a small window in this particular thing, really depressing sort of state down there. Had a lot of time to reflect and grow and make different decisions in that place. But I'd watch my nunnu outside, and every single day this old man would get out there and he'd stand with his vegetation patch, and he'd talk to the plants. his hands, man, were rough as hell. They had a company when they first came to Italy called Cousins Concrete. All my uncles, all the Italians came here, worked for this particular company that he ran. So, you know, it's in the bloodline.
Yeah.
I'm watching this hard work, you know, and when we would have the dinner table, so there's all nieces, and I'm the firstborn nephew, right? So he would sit with me, Ben, you know. And as a kid, his accent was so thick that I couldn't understand a damn word he was saying. But every time he laughed, I laughed, and he loved me, right? Until later on, I started to understand like the broken Italian, the way he was speaking, and he'd tell me stories of, you know, how he did a job for someone. He said, Tony, you were the hardest worker, and that's why we give you the job. And, you know, it was just beating that drum all the time of work ethic. I'd shake his hand. His hands, man, you could feel the hours of like...
The callus.
Oh, man, they were rough as, Ron. They'd cut your bloody thing if you let it. You know, it was incredible. Yeah. And every day, even at a later age, I'd watch him outside and work. So, you know, we're talking mentor... He has to be by far the number one for me, that influence. Two funny stories. One, when we'd sit at the dinner table, Italians talk really loud. And he'd kick me under the table, and he used to wear hearing aids. And he'd kick me, he'd have this little smile everyone knew him for, this little smirk. And he'd turn off his hearing aids so he didn't have to hear all the murmurs and shit that he was hearing through his hearing aids, with everyone escalating over conversation. Right? And another one day he was getting not well, and I could see he was deteriorating, you know, and I started to sort of try and ask, I was really curious at that point. I was asking him all these questions because I wanted to know everything about him. You know, I was really, really interested in him as a person and his legacy. And remember, that's the Ilacqua name for us, passing it down. I'm the only, at that point, the highest level from my uncles, my dad and his brother, and then me. So I'm the Ilacqua of the family, right? So it was important to me around legacy, again, from martial arts. And he looked at the table, and there was all the nieces and nephews and some kids coming through the ranks, and he got to experience like, and I was thinking what he was thinking, like, this is awesome, you know. And back then I had an estranged relationship with my mum, and it was just really bad time. I moved out to get away and all that, and it made me wake up. I'm like, fuck, family's so important, eh? And he tapped me under the table and he said, Ben, I've done what I had to do. And he didn't have to explain any more than that. And I knew he was talking about like he'd had enough at that point, you know. He had this whole family around him. He'd always sit at the head of the table and I would sit here. But this family bond that he'd created, and everybody was getting along, and my Italian family is really close, you know. So, and I thought, you know what, man, that's what I want to do. Yep. That's what I want to do. I want to go back home and call my mum, go back home, live at home, and start to build chapter, 7 of my life at that point, like of all the different chapters you go through. So I went back and tried to be a family man that I hadn't been, and really do the right thing by Megan too, because Megan was around at that point. She went through the thick of it, literally the thick of it. So I wasn't doing the right thing by her, and I went back home with an intention to like change who I was, man. And it was like a light bulb switch, boom, that's it. I cut every single mate off at that point. I'd cut off all ties to anything that sort of distracted me, and I went all in. And then it compounded, as you start to be a good person, a good human, and treat people right, then, opportunities started to flow in, which was nice. I was very lucky in that respect. But, so yeah, I'm painting it. I'm selling paint, not painting anymore at this point. I'm selling paint. And then I was back training as well in the dojo and back in my old place. So I set up the business and whatever, and then the big fallout happened, and a lot of people walked from the dojo based on some morals and disrespect. So again, we're out of training, and a couple of the guys from the dojo said, Ben, you need to take this ship and run. Like, you need to go and do it. I remember I've got this burning desire in the back of my mind, so I said, I'm just going to start small. I'm going to have a couple of students, maybe train out of my garage. I didn't care, and that's where we started. So, and then today we've, just clocked over the 300 members, and we're scaling and growing, and we're in a big factory, and there's just so much more to come. So, I'm very grateful, man.
That's exciting. So right now, how many years is Shadow Fitness been around for?
6 years.
6 years. And Inspirations is
8 years.
8 years. So 2 years into Inspiration. So after the 18 months that you were eating shit for, another 6 months, was my math right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, 18
6 months later, when you
Roughly
started
around
to
that time,
crack it, you're like, you know what? Let me start another gym. And let me start another business. And that was a gym.
Yeah.
And you started that on your own?
Yeah. So Megan was pregnant at the time, and I remember she was not for it. She was not for it. We were already really busy at that point, and I was managing the paint shop, and that I just started to see some runs on the board, not breaking records, but just see some runs on the board. She said, "Babe, there's no way we're going to be able to handle this." Mind you, she's pregnant and she's about to have a baby. That's the last thing on her mind. And here I am, like, "Yep, let's go." But again, people ask me this question all the time. They say, why the paint? Why paint and why the gym? Like, it seems from the outside, two different worlds, right? Literally two different worlds. But to me, it's always been, I'm connected to transformation, right? I'm connected to transformation. And I knew that about myself. I love when I have a DIY customer walk in and they've got a starting painting project that they're going to tackle themselves, and I can give them the tools, the resources, the knowledge, and the right products for them to go and take on that job. Then they go out and they got to do this on their own. So we're with them one step of the way every time. Call whatever you need from the shop. That's our approach. Remember, I'm building customer service, 5-star customer service. Then at the end of the job, I get to see the transformation, and that before and after photo. Man, I love that. I love that about painting. It was a fantastic feeling. I get the same feeling in the gym. There's many a time where someone's walked into the gym broken, going through the toughest of times in their life, and really trying to juggle who they are. And I sort of can, I'm a big believer that you're best equipped to help someone something that you're going through yourself or been through yourself. So because I've gone through a little bit of hardship and struggle, and it wasn't a straight run, then I can connect with the youth that come in there and say, I'm going through a tough time, in this situation, or I'm hanging around the wrong people.
And we've seen some incredible journeys, knowing you, knowing your clients, knowing your trainers. Is there anyone that sticks out? A protege, a student, someone that you've worked with, where you've seen a change and you're proud of it, and you might not want to name anyone, or you might name someone that might be proud of the change that you've seen in them as well.
Yeah, it's a huge question for me because I've been doing it for so long now, and obviously fitness is the byproduct, but there's an element of coaching, life coaching, mentorship, leadership. So these play factor in how we coach now. It's not just come on the gym floor and do a 45-minute workout to us. You can do that at a commercial gym. When you come to the gym, we want to get a result. But everybody's result is different, and it's subject to the success that they think is their success.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, dude, I've stopped.
And you probably don't want to talk yourself up because I'm asking you to talk about how you've changed something.
Well, let me jump in there. Let me jump in there. I think it's hard for him to answer that question because of how much of an impact what he's created and Megan's created and whoever else was involved through creating Shadow Fitness, how much of an impact that's left on so many people at scale. So there could or could not be a couple of names that come to mind, but like me seeing and yourself, seeing the powerful conversations and the powerful level of accountability and the powerful level of determination in the people at Shadow Fitness is because of the culture that's been created from the strategy over the years, the planning over the years, the structure, everything's, to me, I see it from the outside looking in, it's all been designed and the fruits of the labor is playing out.
Yeah. One of our core values is the culture of strong. We want to be culturally strong in mind, body, and spirit. So we try as a club to tap into all three sectors because some people need mindset, and they need to work on their mindset. So fitness is the byproduct. That's why they first come to us, right? But what they tap into when they start working with us is actually helping them through or navigate through the different thought patterns that they have and stuff like that. You know, I've spent a lot of time working with different people and mentors and business coaches and life, you know, myself to now equip me to navigate helping others, you know, and that's been my purpose now. You know, it started as a passion project, but now it's really a purpose. Like me and Megan's, from what I was going to say before, from the pregnant mum at the time that didn't want to be a part of it, she's a massive part of it now, like huge part of the growth and the love and the care, the nurture that the club has. She is the queen of Shadow Fitness Club. But, you know, culturally, to answer your question, man, without saying obviously names, like success is in the eyes of the beholder for me. So I have helped people build up the courage to go and apply for a job that they were hesitant to do, take that particular job on, and they're now the principal of the school, from teacher to principal. Always wanted to do it, didn't have the courage. Through our program, took the interview, absolutely shut themselves. Now is the principal of the school in her dream job. You know, I have helped people build courage to submerge themselves in water from a past trauma. You know, I've helped people run long distances. I've helped people get to the ring because that was their goal. I've helped people lose weight. I've helped over 1,000 people just lose weight in general on different programs.
What I have noticed is that a lot of people that are part of the Shadow Fitness experience and the team are all past members and still members, but they've started off as members and are now the coaches.
Yep. So we had a progressional pathway, you know, because we believe the DNA comes from internally, you know, so we have had some coaches definitely that have what we call a bridge up program where they've gone from member to coach, because if anyone's going to live it and breathe it, it's them, because they've had that experience already. So that when they tell people, they know, man, I used to be a member. I used to do exactly what you did on the floor. Now I'm part of it. And that's been a really fulfilling time for me too, like watching our coaches that are from member to coach. Like we spoke about, I could say names, like, you know, Rochelle was one of them.
I was speaking to Rochelle the other day, and the way she talks about the impact that you had on her life and, you know, she dealt with some past stuff and just her fitness journey to now working there. And you can see how she is with the other members. It's great. It's great to see her loving doing that and not being someone that was like that before.
She went through a really tough time in her life. Her story is phenomenal. And I've forced her to share that in certain circles before, just because it needs to be shared, you know. And she was very timid to speak and talk in front of her group. And now I watch her take a class, and you know, it's a proud moment for us that we're mentoring up like this.
Even Jacob, like I've seen Jacob, the change in him, how you, like the years being with you and leading classes. Like
Jacob's incredible young, you know, Jacob will go on to do great things, you know, but when I first met him, very broken young child and not sure who he was as a person and things like that. So again, you know, I'm super proud of that now, that we can make those small ripple effects that Pat mentioned, you know, to the community now. And
you're leading others to do that for you.
Yeah, it's such a nice feeling to know that, because I didn't have that influence, you know what I mean? Like I was searching for influence.
But that's another thing. How do you keep learning? How do you keep yourself continuously learning?
I think members ask me this too. You know, they always, Ben, how are you always on? Or like, how do you get yourself to that level all the time to lead from the front and things like that? There's two things that I live by, right? One, I never make you do anything that I haven't done before in any of my business, my staff. Like there is nothing that I would ask you to do. Like if we're cleaning the toilets, the boys know that I'll be hands dirty cleaning the toilets. Like that's just...
You're also the one that destroys it most of the time.
Yeah, probably. But
that protein.
That's always been my approach, is that I'll never ask you to do something that... The other thing that I do, that I value mentorship, you know. So I have invested thousands and thousands of dollars over the years in different business coaches. I just flew to Bali. People thought I was going to Bali for fun. I had a couple of days of fun. a couple of days or most of the days at the start were us in the trenches. We're the business coach that came to literally pick apart who we are as a person and rebuild us again. And that's his approach. But I invest heavily in that, and I believe that in life, even coaches need to be coached.
Yeah.
Even coaches need to be coached. You should always have people in your corner that are being frank and honest with you, and people don't like that these days. You know, if you said something to me and I call you bullshit on it, you know, I'm not saying you personally, but people don't like to be told that's not the right thing to do.
Especially as a business owner. A business owner doesn't like to be told what to do because they've learnt to just be the boss of their own domain.
Agree.
Well, don't you notice that the most successful people over the years are the ones that have been the most coachable ones?
Yeah, that's right. 100%.
It's like living in some sort of a mindset where you're a forever student and you're continually learning.
Yeah.
And it's just elevating one after another.
Well, the martial arts way is that even at black belt level, I've got multi-black belt dans in different styles now and across, you know, this is my 30th year in combat martial arts. There's guys that have been in 30 years that are 30 years older than me, you know, because I started so young. So, but I'm forever a student.
Can I ask you a question around consistency? Because something that I'm guilty of, and I can only imagine there's so many people out there that are guilty of this, is staying consistent training. I used to run the story that I wasn't consistent as a person, but then reflecting back, I'm pretty consistent with things in business and things at work. So I can't say I'm not a consistent person, but then the consistency when it comes to training just always ends up dropping off. So how do you speak to that? What advice would you give to people that fall off when it comes to consistency behind training or consistency in general? How would you?
That's a lot of consistencies.
Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure I get the question.
No, I understand the question.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was trying to keep up.
yeah, consistent.
I got lost a little bit.
Only said
No,
it
I understand. So there's two parts to what you'd ask, because consistency to your training, right? My answer to this, because members do, again, ask me this all the time, how do you stay so consistent, is I know the feeling when I'm not training and not consistent is worse than the feeling when I am. And I acknowledge that, right? So I don't miss a session. I won't. I refuse. So if I train in the morning and that's my allocated week, I also schedule my week and time management and a few other things that we could go into. But, you know, I do have a schedule for the week. If I don't train at 5 a.m., because that's on I will train that night at midnight if I have to. At midnight. Because I know the feeling the following day when I miss that task.
What do you mean the feeling? Like the guilt or?
You tell me what you feel when you don't train, right? Feel guilt?
So it's the non-negotiable. For you, it's a non-negotiable.
100%.
It's not even in your repertoire
No.
of saying, hey, I'm going to miss it today.
Well, that's my me time.
Yeah.
That's the only time in the day when you
Just like
should
people
put your
watch
phone
TV.
away.
Where people watch TV,
Yeah.
that's your thing.
Yeah.
Where people sleep, that's your thing.
Yeah. Everybody has an outlet,
Yeah.
you know, and something that they can shut off
Yeah.
from the world. It might be a TV show or whatever it is. Right? For me, consistency has to be with my training. I know that I make better decisions when I train. I know when I feel good in myself. Remember, I'm not in competition with anybody, right? I'm past that point now. You know, I'm really in competition with myself.
Yesterday.
If I'm getting 1% better just for myself, then I'm doing myself justice. I believe that we're sent on this earth to do something special. And whether you're the best toilet cleaner in the world, I don't care. Clean that toilet the best you can ever clean it. Like, take pride that you are that person. If you're the best pizza maker, make that pizza to the best you can do it. Right? So I've approached my training the same way, because I know that if I'm not training, I make worse decisions. I make bad decisions personally. So this is a non-negotiable for me. But what people aren't prepared to do is do it outside of the norm. So what do I hear? I don't train in the morning, or I'm not a morning person. Complete limiting belief. Complete. Because you've said that you're not a morning person. And I have made people train in the morning and become morning people. You understand? What we say upon ourselves is who we are. Like, so I don't say it.
Yeah.
I will train. And look, I don't need to break records every time either. I'm not going for PBs every day and try and lift heavy. I actually lift really light these days, you know, with injuries and stuff and whatever. I'm not running marathons either. I'm the owner of the gym, but I'm not running marathons. I'm not fighting in boxing. I'm not competing in martial arts. I just train. I train and I train regularly because that helps me, the flow and effect, make the right decisions outside in my life.
What's it like being in business with your wife? Is there power? Is there power behind it?
I think it's the best thing ever.
Why is that?
I just think, that how cool it can be that two people within the same household can be on the same mission. Like we there's a stigma, I'd say. There's a bit of a stigma in like, you should never get into business with family or friends or whatever. Like that's the same stigma as we were told about the money, right? Money's not the root of all evil. Money, profit, is it like everyone's scared to say the word profit? Profit allows me to do other things.
And leave bigger ripple effects.
Well, I can connect more with the community. I can send more money away to the charities that I already work with. I can create more and more and more and give more opportunity to my people. I can put a fight night in my gym and be able to afford to do those things. I can, offset some programs to work with youth development and not have to make ends meet to do it. Like these are the things that I'm already doing because I'm making the word profit. So having Megan on the mission has been electric because when she's on, like she's badass at it,
Yeah.
The challenge for Megs is mum and business owner. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing where 1 minute she's mum and I want her to be mum, and then next minute she's business owner. You know what I mean? So, but I think our kids are 7 and 5, so that's a common problem, I'd say, when you have kids and trying to manage that. But I like it, man. I really think it's the best thing ever that Meg's come into it. She has a different mindset to me. If there was two of me, fuck it, you go nuts, right? But she's not like me.
Yeah.
She's creative.
But now it's not just her, it's the family. Antonio, you got the next generation of you.
Yeah, we also sat down and agreed that we want to, build a legacy, and family was important to us and all these things. She comes from a broken family too. I do too. We connect like that. So it's important for us to build a legacy and make sure our kids are looking up to us and really proud. The number one thing for me in my life, man, honestly, is that my son one day turns around and says, fuck, my dad was a legend, man. Like he really fucking tried, Yeah. Like my father was very charismatic outside to people and treat people, but in the home was a complete opposite person. He had a really foul temper and, didn't treat us the right way. Never told us that he loved us. I know he did. I'm not saying he was a bad father, Later on in life, I know he didn't make all the right choices, but we became good mates. Because I looked at him for what it's worth. But
did you see a change in him when your son was born?
Oh, big time, man. Big time.
My sister just had a baby, and I just see a totally
massive shift,
side.
Massive. Like
I've never seen that side of him, just in videos and photos.
Man, insane.
I can see a different side that I never saw.
I saw my father get down, and play on the floor with my son.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't tell you. I can't remember. You can't remember. With me. He would never come and watch me play soccer or anything. It was my mum all the time, took me to these things. It's incredible. So, going back to what you said, now we've got our kids, whatever. The important thing for me and Megan is stay aligned on the mission.
Yeah.
The mission is to raise these kids, with love and stay connected.
So how would you do that in between your busy life, in between training, in between running the gym, in between running martial arts, in between running Inspirations Paint, in between having 2 kids, in between being married, in between social media? How don't you get tired?
Yeah.
That was all one breath. One breath.
I got tired from that. How can you stay focused?
Bro, far out. And the consistency and the discipline behind it. It's like there has to be a deeper driving force.
I'll tell you something, right? To me, tired is like a feeling, and feelings come and go. Right? Do I feel tired? Yeah, I feel tired. Do you feel tired?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, so there's a guy that's sitting on the couch right now eating Cheetos. Does he feel tired?
Probably does.
Yeah. Well, then choose your heart. You know what I mean? Choose your heart. That's how I've always been.
Yeah.
I know I feel tired. I also feel electric. I feel alive. I feel connected to the mission and the purpose, So, I do feel that sometimes, I think people think that, I know some members think like we're superhuman. We're not. We get tired too. We get tired. But I know that tired is a feeling. You also feel happy for a short space. You feel sad in a short space. You feel everything's short with feelings, right? So you have to be bigger than your emotions, you know. And again, I tie that back to martial arts. You can go on the mat and come up against somebody that's bigger and badder than you and humble you. What do you feel then? Frustration, you know, cranky, want to react. You know, these are all short-term feelings, you know. So I've been feeling the feels all the time, you know what I mean? But they're short. You feel upset today, tomorrow I bet you wake up, the sun's up, you feel happy.
Yeah.
You know. So yes, I do get tired. Right now we're doing Project X, and we can speak to that because you're on the damn challenge with me.
4 a.m.
We aim 4 a.m. wake ups every single day. Now for some people go 4 a.m. that's easy. For some people say 4 a.m. man, that's ridiculous. Right? Saturday, Sunday, every day.
Yeah.
For a month. Right? Every day for a month. We also have to do 2 workouts and a plethora of other challenges along the way, right? But you're not at home just doing the challenge. You have to deal with it with life.
Yeah.
Talking consistency, I put myself in positions of discomfort to continually take on life's jabs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
So you can get comfortable.
Yeah.
You can if you don't feel uncomfortable.
I speak to Serena about this all the time. Every time I get comfortable, I just get like a downward spiral. And if I'm staying in that comfort zone for so long, it's like, oh man,
you're not supposed to be there.
I know. And I see it in my business. I see it in my health. I see it in my. It's like it's a downward spiral. The guilt starts to creep up.
Yeah.
Like, oh Pat, what are you doing? And then it's like
You check yourself, you know.
comfort zone is such a dangerous.
You always
place.
need to feel like you're number 2 or like there's a better business around the corner. There's a better, you know, there's more money to be earned there by opening that and taking risk or taking out that debt, taking out that business loan to fund this. You just always feel scared that it's all going to collapse, because if you don't feel scared, you're just going to start getting comfortable.
Well, and you can attest to this, right? I've lived in a home with nothing,
Yeah.
where, you know, my mother was struggling. I've seen that angst, you know, so I can lose it at any time.
We don't want to go back to that. You never, once you feel like you've made it, but you need to keep fighting, you keep fighting because you don't want to go back.
And I'm fighting for little eyes looking up, you know, and talking to Antonio and my daughter Malia, who's like the love of our life. You know, I'm not fighting for me anymore, you know.
Yeah.
It's a different fight. It's a different fight. So
Do you think if the kids weren't in the picture, you would be just as hungry and just as disciplined and just as consistent in your life about just...
It's a good question, because I don't think kids should be the reason why you actually, you know what I mean? Like that's probably not...
That's why I'm asking the
I
question.
shouldn't set that tone that, you know, you need to have kids in order to be that.
But do you think it lit up the fire? Of course, it lit up a fire. Everyone says, yeah, once a kid's coming, blah, blah, whatever. But do you think you'll be just as hard as how you're going now?
I was hungry before.
Yeah.
I was hungry before, but I had to work on myself a little bit prior to that, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
But I think it's different. It's different because now you got to still spend time with them. You still got to make the effort. You got to get more mouths to feed. Then you've got more employees and everything. I feel like you hustle harder, but it's a different hustle.
Agree. Yeah, we just recently realigned all of our goals, Megan and I. You know, we've sat down and sort of put together what are our goals now. You know, what's our dream life? What do we want? You know, we're not merely materialistic. You know, I don't drive a flashy car when I could have for a long, long time now, probably. You know, like that the flashy watches and doesn't really interest me. You know, that I've never connected to that. You know,
I'm just going to take.
let me check your watch. No, I've never been connected to that because it's not the monetary, you know, position that. You know, money's just a tool for me. You know, money's a tool for me now that I can actually do more. Yeah. So when we wrote down all of our goals, and it was interesting because, you know, we're very similar in what we want, but a lot of it was actually for the kiddies.
Do you feel like your sense of wealth is the impact of the more lives you can impact, like you can help? Someone
said this to me and it sort of sat with me. I'm like, if I pass tomorrow, like I want them to make it like I think Conor McGregor actually said it too, but we want to make like a reel or a YouTube movie on your life. Say that was going to happen. That's probably not going to happen for me, but say it happens for you.
Man,
Right?
that's so scary. I literally thought about that today.
Yeah,
Like 5 hours ago. I swear to
Imagine
God,
you
it's
pass
so
and they
scary.
could make like a montage for your kids to watch or something of your life. Like what are you doing in your world? You know, there's some special people out there with some special talents that don't ever do anything with it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why now in my role now as the CEO of my life, I know that I can get people to do great things.
Yeah.
Like I have already influenced that, and I don't want to peacock my chest out today. Today's episode is not really about that. You know, this is again my story and what I've experienced. But like I just know now what I'm sent to do. You know, and that's really, and I'm content with that, man. And it's a nice place to be in after so many years of trying to find out who the fuck I was.
I think when you think about that reel, and I think you would be the same as mine. For me, my reel would be just a lot of my clients' achievements.
Yeah,
And
how
for
cool
you,
but that's sick.
Yeah,
bro, isn't
like it wouldn't be a lot about what I've done, but it would be a lot of what I've helped my clients achieve.
Yeah, and that's such a powerful.
And I feel like that's for me more fulfilling, knowing that I'm living a great life, but I'm impacting other people's lives in a positive way.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, you just feel that sense of satisfaction a lot more.
Yeah, that's what drives me every day.
Yeah.
Keeps me continuing to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Knowing that, and I have an awesome team too. I must tell you this. Like none of this is just me. I might be on the microphone today, but there's people behind us that, well, not people behind us, people that stand next to us. You know, that's our approach with our team. We have in both the gym and the paint shop, you know, like family to us, like literal extended family. We're that tight as a group. So they're making ripple effects too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my influence to them has allowed them to then make ripple effects. Like the flow on is really powerful. So, man, I'm really grateful, you know, and in the interest of time too. Like I know we could talk for hours on different things, but
after question.
I'm in a good space at the moment, you know. My headspace is good. I'm working with some really great mentors myself currently that are helping me realign where we're headed and what we can do with the businesses. There's some opportunities that will be announced in the next couple of weeks that I've been working on for years, which are exciting. So, and I'm just going to keep pushing forward, man. That's you know, I'm probably not the ideal sensei or master instructor because I swear a lot and I'm a little left field. But the parents that train with us, they know.
Yeah.
They understand that I'm there with complete love for the students, and the members know that have been with me for long enough that our heart's in the right place, and all we want to see them is grow.
Ron, did you have any final questions, or did you want to take this anywhere else?
No, probably we should do the questions that Benny asks all our
I got
guests.
the questions in front of me.
Yeah.
How do you have
I think I can even remember it.
But how do you have them? Because I have them.
Because we have a WhatsApp group.
You just planned this before.
No, I think I've got it in my head.
Do you want to give it a crack on your own?
I reckon I can give
Go.
it.
And if you miss one, I'll jump in
then
after.
you jump in.
Yeah, all right. It's
Okay.
usually you jumping in, but
Yeah.
now
What gives a
have
chance for you to jump in?
tables have
I'm a
turned.
bit nervous.
All right.
How the guest feels when we do this.
Tune in to Benny's questions. Okay.
Not the same.
All right. First car.
It was a Lancer.
Was it dropped with a sprint car?
It's dropped on rims, and the system was.
The sub was the most expensive thing in the car.
And then it broke the back screen.
Yeah.
It rattled like.
I love that shutter. I loved hearing it rattle. You know when you feel the screws are about to come out. Yeah.
The Lancer.
Okay, country or beach?
Beach.
Favorite destination or bucket list?
Bucket list.
Yeah.
Megan really wants to go to the Maldives.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't been there. We've travelled all over the world. That's another great thing we've done together. But Maldives is one that we haven't been to.
Yeah. And favorite cheat meal?
Pasta.
Okay. And if you were a snack, what would you be?
You're waiting for it.
Every time this comes up, it's Turkish Delight comes up.
Did you eat Turkish
No,
delight?
I don't. But
Don't say Turkish
no,
delight.
I know.
man.
But the guests have been saying Turkish
like
Delight lately.
free.
Well, I thought you were a leader. Be a leader, not a follower, and choose your own.
All right. What was the question?
If you were a snack, what would you be?
A caramello koala.
Caramel koala. Okay, and if you're at a party, are you on the dance floor or you sitting looking at everyone?
Come on, man.
Yeah,
You can answer that one.
I've seen you with your shirt off.
Doesn't take me long to think I can dance, so I'm on the floor.
I think that for me, I've got it.
Bro, you're so off. There's so many left.
How many left? How many left were there?
All right. There was, okay. There's probably favorite sport.
Rugby league, actually, to support. Yeah, rugby league.
Okay. And team?
Bulldogs.
Beer or wine?
Wine.
Burger or wraps?
Wraps.
Favorite quote?
I've got a few because I'm like the quote master, but one that sits with me is not capable, capable. So I don't like to cap anything in my life with limiting belief, like I'm capable to do anything.
That's good. I like that. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Hopefully doing the podcast. I'm enjoying it. No, in 5 years' time, I should have multi-site distribution center for Inspirations Paint.
Yeah, buddy.
And some aircon.
Yeah. Yeah. So multi-site Inspirations Paint, that was always a goal that we're pushing for lately. The gym to hit a certain number of members, that we're on a trajectory to do so. And, traveling every year with Megan. She's like my travel buddy.
Do another Bali trip.
Yeah, she's my travel buddy, and I'll be lost at the airport if it wasn't for her. So.
What about the kids? Do you want to leave them at home, or would you like to take them?
Depends on the holiday.
Yeah,
Bring
true.
Karen.
You need a couple of Thailand ones with the other kids.
All right, pet peeve.
Don't say me, not a person.
No.
Can't be wrong.
Pet peeve of mine that jumps out is people like gunners. Like I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. Like that.
Jeffrey Morgan.
You just sounded like him as you said that.
Yeah. But it's true. It's such a good point.
Yeah, lots of people I talk to, I'm gonna do this, gonna do that, and I see them in months to come, and I always ask because I'm interested, and how are you going with that project or thing that you said or whatever. I don't know why people, when you're in business, a lot of people tell you that they want to get into business. I think people should just stop doing that. Like if you're, you know what I mean? You don't need to step up to that. It's all good. I'm okay. I'm not judging you or anything. It's just where we landed, Like I said, you can be the best damn bloody cleaner of the table. Just do that, but be proud of that. You don't have to tell me that you're going to open a table cleaning company and have 35 staff, because I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah, I feel bad about telling people what I'm going to do if
you don't follow through.
Yeah, if you have to see them again. You just want to avoid them after that.
I have a little theory around that. I'm just going to quickly slot it in there because it was a light bulb moment for me. Whenever people say, because I was one of them, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, it's like they already got the dopamine hit out of telling you for that validation of the other person that the energy behind pushing to make that happen has already been diffused. Does that make sense?
And I used to do that, and I realized I shouldn't, because I was disappointing myself.
Agree. Yeah, well then eventually you should check yourself and man, I got to listen to my own bullshit. You're not going to do that. So stop saying it, So it's frustrating because I got lots of friends and acquaintances that do that a lot, Oh
man, it just happens in conversations with mates or business or whatever it is, but then you don't realize how often it happens and then how often people don't follow through.
Yeah, and I'm not all about not clipping people's wings either. Like, man, if that's what you say, like, fuck, let's go for it. Like, how can I help you too? Like, I'm not going to kick you down and say you're not going to do that. But people need to be more congruent with their word.
100%.
That's the pet peeve of mine.
Absolutely. Couple more. What's a guilty pleasure TV show no one knows you watched?
Whatever Megan's watching.
Nah, give me more than that, bro.
Well, that's the truth, but
no.
When we finally get to the couch of a nighttime, I don't have a say in that. I'll be honest. I'm going to tell you.
You look like a Love Island guy, but...
Yeah, so if she's watching... I've watched every Desperate Housewife show there is.
So have I.
And you know what?
Desperate Housewives, it was the best show.
I've watched them so much that when she's not there, I put them on too.
Okay.
Well, that's what we wanted to know.
Because I'm not going to start another show.
Yeah, we got there.
I'm not going to start a show.
Remember at the start of the show, I said there's nothing off limits? Yeah, this is lie.
Well, you can ask her. That's the truth. I put them on because I'm halfway through the episode.
Okay.
All right, we got it. You love
trying to justify myself.
Yeah. We don't want another Suits discussion for half an hour.
Suits is one that I like.
I was actually going to say Suits. I was waiting for you to
Crack
say
a
it.
show.
Yeah.
I told you.
All right. Unusual superstition.
I don't have one, but I do. I won't put my right shoe on before my left shoe.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
But it's not really a superstition. It's just
It's just weird.
Yeah, it is a bit
It's just
weird. I was
weird.
going to say weird.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
whatever.
I couldn't tie my shoelaces until I was about 11 years old either. So
That's also
I don't know if it's got to do with that. I swear I couldn't. Tell my
You've got those Velcro straps.
Yeah.
on the shoes.
yeah.
Still to this day.
Look, I'm gonna rock it down.
All right, Ben, we do this last question that we ask for every guest that we have on this show. You ready?
Yeah.
The question is, I don't know if you've heard it before. If you were to bring 3 people on a dinner date from the history of humanity to a present day, who would those 3 people be and why?
So first one for me is Michael Jordan. I wasn't a major basketball fan, but he's just an incredible human being. Lived by like a complete disciplinary code of how he operated. So yeah, definitely Michael Jordan. The next one's actually another MJ, Michael Jackson. Growing up, I idolized Michael Jackson in his prime. You know, the way he actually created the theatre and the theatrics of the show and how much he actually put into it. Tomorrow night, I'm actually going to the Michael Jackson show in the city to watch the performance. Oh, not him, obviously.
Yeah, the guy from Fairfield that dresses like him.
Yeah. So there's a show tomorrow night that I'm actually going to. I was a big MJ fan, but MJ in his prime.
Yeah.
I just think it'd be kind of cool to find out, like, what the visionary behind, the king of pop at that point. Last one, I think every guest gets stuck here because they want to say family. You want to say, I want to bring my dad back. I wouldn't mind having one last laugh with my old man or my nunu, just to listen to some story about him working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
But also, you said you never really said to him what an impact he made on you.
Yeah, so it'd be kind of cool to have those moments, but you're asking like who you're going to bring to the table, right? You want something like, you want interesting, one you haven't met type thing. I think for me, going to martial arts, it has to be Bruce Lee. Has to be Bruce Lee. One, I want to ask him, half the memes that are out there, did you actually say those memes? Because I think some of them were created and they made it up. But he had like a philosophy in life.
And how did you really die?
Yeah, well, that's controversial. But he had a philosophy in life that I think was very, very unique. So it'd be interesting having sort of Michael Jordan from that disciplined, hardworking, good sportsman player, got his whole team up in a time when that team wasn't great. MJ from a creative perspective, and then Bruce Lee, to tick my martial arts box.
Benjamin, thank you.
It's been an honour.
Coming on the show, being a part of this experience and in the guest seat. Very well loved and appreciated and respected man in our community, and a pleasure to be one of us. And thank you.
Boys, I will say this, thanks for this opportunity. And, you guys are dear friends of mine. And, I've loved the journey of not only the podcast, but actually watching all of us grow together through different challenges and times. And there's been some highs and been some lows. But I guess we can sit here pretty proud that we can celebrate these type of things together and give each other the platform to share our story. So thank you.
Absolutely.
100%.
All right, fellas, we'll see you guys on the next one.
Wait.
Really, just for all our viewers, I don't know if you've seen this on the other episodes. If you just want to look down the camera and just let everyone know.
What is it, on 3?
Yeah.
You want to count down?
No, Benny do it by himself,
I have to go 1,
2, 3.
Let's connect.
Alrighty. Well done.
We made this a free platform because we want to educate and add value to your business world. All we ask for as a payment is to hit the subscribe button and share it with people that you know would benefit from this conversation. If you want to elevate your connections, we'll see you at the next Connect MacArthur event.